To say my initial mod in the Thermaltake Core P3 went well would be a lie. I'm gonna be completely honest, there were things that just didn't really work. Mainly when it came to painting it. You see, we actually added a front radiator bracket so that we can put a nice 420 on there without actually having to remove the glass side panel. This actually is an amazing mod, and I actually found out after building the system that it actually has a lot of benefits for this system. But there was one small problem. We had to paint the case and the bracket to match, and the only way to do that really is to repaint the entire case. And I knew that I really didn't want to use a gloss coat. I really wanted something matte. And that's where I made some mistakes. You see, the case itself actually dried in a way that it was actually quite rough. So rough that when I went to actually clean it up for the first time, I shredded the paper towel into the case and had no way of getting it out. So I actually had no idea what to do at this point. I thought maybe we can sand it out, but I didn't know exactly how to sand it out or what type of sandpaper to use. And that is where JayzTwoCents comes in. As coincidentally, as I'm dealing with this problem, he posted a video that actually talks about painting cases with spray paint. And I was like, hey, that's perfect. So I watched it and I quickly disregarded some of his advice because I'm not gonna get car polish to do this. We're gonna do this the cheapest way possible by getting some high grit sandpaper and just reading the instructions on the back of the package because yeah, it pretty much tells you exactly what you need to know. How are you guys doing today? So honestly, this is a bit of a project that I actually took on a couple of days ago, and I'm only really kind of talking about it now because, well, I needed to see how it worked and if I was going to have to sneak a new Thermaltake Core P3 into our set. Fortunately, it's not a problem. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It actually worked amazingly. So what we needed to do is we actually needed to even out the coat a little bit. And fortunately, that's not too hard. We just needed to get a hold of some nice high grit sandpaper. I got some 800 grit from Home Depot, and yeah, I'm just gonna let you see how easy that was because it was just stupidly easy to finish out that coat. After we got that done, I decided to actually take on a slightly different project on this case. I actually really like the look of a distribution plate, but I don't have the equipment to do a distribution plate inside our apartment. And as much as I would love to make a CNC router, I don't think Gamer Guts will allow me. So because we cannot really do that, I had to come up with something else, and I actually saw this in another YouTube video where they made something called a routing plate, where they used pass-through fittings and just kind of drilled through to actually make it so that you could route the tubes in very specific ways. We decided to try this with acrylic at first. And honestly, that wasn't really too bad of an idea. It was working out pretty well. We actually had it cut down to size and it looked pretty good. Except disaster struck once we started actually getting the holes wide enough to actually hold the pass-throughs. The acrylic shattered pretty nastily, actually, to the point that I definitely needed to think of a different type of material. So then I was like, how about metal? Now, unfortunately, due to the way that our apartment complex works, they have a rule that strictly prohibits open sparks on the balcony. So let's just say that there were no sparks on the balcony, and just assume we're going with that. But I ran into a different problem with working with metal. Unfortunately, I don't have a bandsaw, I don't have a box break, which would have made my life so much easier. I don't have really any tools to evenly cut metal. And in fact, I've been using a Dremel, and let's just say that's not exactly the most even tool. I got it to the point that I thought it was pretty even. I drilled some holes and I tried to get the pass-through fittings, and I found that they're not going through. I don't actually have a bit big enough for this drill. So I went out and got an even bigger bit, and that doesn't fit in the drill. So then I ordered a stepping bit and I tried to assemble it that way. And then when I kind of lined it up with the case, I realized that it's not even. So I kept running into issue after issue after issue with the metal, until I decided to come up with something absolutely crazy after a completely low point in this build. I don't usually like to end videos on failure, but we did not succeed this time. I am a mess. I'm all gross and covered in stuff, and I still don't have a routing plate. So we tried the acrylic and it shattered once we started to actually get to the bits big enough to actually, make the pass-through. And turns out I don't even have a bit big enough for it. They're a massive size, and I bought a 14.3 millimeter bit in order to fit the tolerance of 14 millimeters according to EK. Problem is, that didn't seem to allow the fitting to fit through it, and not to mention it didn't even really fit into the drill, and I kind of just used my hand to slowly cut away at the steel. It took an hour and a half for me to get the hole wide enough. It's all lopsided, it looks all gross, and it just isn't working for me. More importantly, I'm not super precise when it comes to using the Dremel, not yet. And so unfortunately, my lines aren't super straight, and the amount of work that it's going to take for me to actually straighten out that piece with machine precision is well beyond my scope and ability in this apartment. So what I decided to do was I decided to actually use fan covers as a starting point for my routing plate. Now, this idea actually worked great in practice when it came to drilling and stepping and actually getting the bits in there. But after we started building the system, it actually fell apart very quickly. Unfortunately, once I started actually having to put pressure on there and get the tubes in there, we punched right on through those routing holes, which meant that, yeah, let's just say the routing plate completely failed. And honestly, I am kind of disappointed in it. It was going to be kind of that cool thing that I ended up using, that element that I added to the build that no other person had ever done in this one. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out. But there is a silver lining. In the actual build for this system, I actually still use those fan covers as a way to route one of the tubes through in sort of like a snaking motion. It actually ended up looking kind of cool and very unique. So if you're not subscribed already, get subscribed because we're going to be doing that build actually soon on this channel. Either way, this was just my journey trying to just fix the Thermaltake Core P3, the weird case that it is, and the mod that I have created for it. That being said, I'm not done with it. Even though I've actually successfully built a system, which is over here, in that case, I'm going to be adding at least one more radiator bracket, and we're going to be reapproaching that distribution plate. So let's just say there's at least one more video modding the Core P3. I can't believe I've been doing so many on it, but there's at least one more video modding the Core P3 that is going to be specifically built around getting a distro plate in there, putting another radiator in there, and then redoing the liquid cooling in a way that it makes sense. So yeah, I have a plan. I just need some time to do it. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, you can leave a like, comment, subscribe. I do content like this every week. Honestly, I've done a lot with the Core P3 and it's really an interesting case. We'll be approaching kind of like a review for it on a later date. And honestly, just everything that I've been doing to this case is it's just one project after another. So thank you guys again. Wolfie out.